Are you having a lot of smoke issues when you go to light your fire in your wood stove or your fireplace? Well, what if I told you there was an easier way to set up your wood and light that match and have consistent results and have less smoke coming in your home? Well, let me show you how to do that. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Fireplace Whisperer studio. Today we're going to be going over the top-down burn method for your wood stove or your fireplace. Now, a lot of people are used to starting their fire with kindling. And maybe they'll set it up and they'll do the TP thing and they'll work with paper and they'll get it lit. And then once it burns down, and you have a hotbed of embers, then they start moving into larger pieces of wood, and they get that in there, and typically more smoke will be generated, and it's just not the best way of doing it. The top-down burn method is used widely in Europe because it really works, and we are seeing more manufacturers put this information, this top-down burn information, in their install manuals. So they're beginning to realize this is information that's very helpful for homeowners when they first start their fire in their units. Now, the disadvantage with doing it with kindling first and then larger pieces of wood is the first problem is when you're lighting your match down low, the heat has a further distance to travel to get up the flue to then warm up the flue and create the draw that is needed to pull the smoke up the flue. So as their flue is trying to heat up, you're just getting more smoke into the home. And you might be trying to keep the door kind of closed like this and trying to get some more paper and you're trying to get it going. Once the temperature is established, then it's not as much of an issue. So now the kindling's burning and you're waiting for everything to heat up. You're not quite ready to throw the big chunk of wood on just yet. So a few minutes later, you're now ready to throw the big chunk of wood. This is where the second problem comes in. As soon as you throw a larger chunk of wood, your heat curve has been doing this with your kindling. It's getting hotter and hotter. As soon as you put that big chunk of wood on there, the heat curve begins to taper. And that's when you can actually see some smoke coming off of your larger chunk of wood. And again, that's when smoke can come back into the home. So then you try to close your door to prevent the smoke. The temperature is hot in your chimney. So it's now going to begin to pull the smoke up. Your larger chunk of wood starts on fire, and then you're off to the races. The top-down burn method is so much better in a couple different ways. We're going to set this up so that you can see it. What you do is you start with your bigger chunk of wood, and this is typically 3 to 4 inches in size, and you'll put a couple down on the floor. As you build this, you can also build it so everything kind of leans backwards. So as it burns down, has less of a chance of falling into the glass. The next layer of wood is 2 to 3 inches. And we're going to put that right on top of the larger wood. Then we start moving to our kindling. And I have this paper that will also help us start the kindling on fire. I kind of will sneak this in as I start stacking the kindling in here. And here, just a couple layers. And then if you have any shavings like this, which typically you do when you're chopping your kindling, you can lay that right on top. Now I know what you're thinking. You're wondering, how is this better? First, it is better because the fire, when you first start, is higher in the firebox. And so the heat that it generates is now closer to where it's going to exit the stove and start heating up the chimney. The second is, as the kindling starts on fire, it begins to start the wood below it on fire. And as minutes pass, now this wood is going to start the larger wood on the base on fire. So your heat curve, it only does this. It never will taper off. And then, depending on the size of your firebox and how much wood you're getting in there, 20 some minutes later, when you go to refill, everything is up to temperature and smoke is almost not an issue. Before I light the match, I want to make sure that the air adjustment is full open. Once the flame is going, I'm going to keep this door shut, or not shut all the way. It's going to be cracked, but that's where we may have some smoke still want to come into the room. So I'm going to try to keep this as closed as I can, and then I'm just going to be watching the kindling. I may have to throw another piece of paper on there because I want that fire to be brisk and I want that kindling to really catch on fire and really start to take off. Before I light the paper down here, what I do is I hold a piece of paper up high and light this on fire, because in this particular firebox, it's just tall. So I'm going to start the fire here because I want heat to just go up that chimney as quick as I can to start to establish that draw. Here we go. Well, that wraps up our top-down burn procedure. This unit's been running about 25 minutes, and we probably have another 10 minutes at least before we're going to start putting more wood on it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.